This is the Gutsy Health Podcast with Janique and Tristan Roney. Hey guys, welcome back to the Gutsy Health Podcast.
Hi, everybody.
We have one of our most favorite mentors chatting to you guys today. And we kind of gush about Ronda. Ronda is like a name in our household daily. Like it's always Ronda Nelson this and Ronda Nelson that. And so, Ronda, thank you so much for coming on our show today. This is such a treat for us, and I know it's going to be for our audience. So welcome.
And Thanks for having me.
By the way, she's Dr.
Yes,
Ronda
Dr.
Nelson.
Ronda. Sorry. Oh my gosh.
No. You know what I don't like about the doctor term?
What?
Is that doctor separates you from people.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. And I think that people sometimes get wrapped up in that doctor term because it's a status symbol and not for everyone. Like, I don't want anyone to misinterpret what I'm saying, but sometimes it's a status symbol, and I am about relationship. So I don't like anything that makes us any different. We're all just one group of people trying to figure out our way through life. And so thank you for that. But no, I'm just Rhonda. I'm good.
Well, welcome, Rhonda, Dr. Rhonda. I mean, she's brilliant, you guys. She is freaking brilliant. And you will not be disappointed by this episode today. So she's the total package. What are we talking about, babe? Well, let's talk about what we're talking about. And then, Rhonda, why don't you give us a little bit of background about who you are and whatnot?
So we're talking about pregnancy today.
Yes.
Specifically, you're pregnant. Now what? What do you do? How do you take care of yourself? Do you listen to the doctors at this point?
Right.
I don't know.
Yes. You can listen to this doctor who's on our podcast today, but this is probably one of my most frequently asked questions on Instagram. I actually try to reply to my DMs. My assistant replies to DMs, and she keeps hounding me every day. She's like, all the pregnant ladies want to know X, Y, and Z. And she's like, I swear everyone is pregnant right now. Please, can you do a podcast on pregnancy? And I'm like, I won't, but I know someone who can. So Rhonda, please introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, why are you so freaking amazing, and why do we love you so much?
Well, I don't know why you love me so much because I'm a bit of a mouth, but maybe that's why you love me. I don't know. That might be part of it.
A mouth with a brain, though.
A mouth with a brain. Yeah, baby. That's what we got rolling. So I won't give you the whole big long story, but the short story is that I ate crappy food while I was growing up. Didn't know any better. We ate macaroni and cheese and top ramen and Spam, and my favorite food in the whole wide world was a bowl of mint chip ice cream with my dad. So when I got married at 18, don't recommend it. I had my first child at 20. And was continuing to eat that kind of crappy food. And I weighed almost 200 pounds when I had her, and had a long, horrible birth. And she was colic. She slept less than 1 hour a day for the first 9 weeks of her life. And cry the entire other 23 hours. And the 1 hour was broken up.
Oh, man.
So really, she just cried 24 hours a day because she was in horrible pain from colic. And I didn't know at the time that had everything to do with what I was eating. I didn't know it. So poor thing, I had to quit nursing at 6 weeks and put her on soy formula. Really bad idea.
Wow.
But that was what the quote pediatrician tells you to do. So being young and naive, and I didn't know, I just did what I was told. And fast forward, had a couple more kids in there. And then fast forward to when she was 6 years old, she fell out of a tree and broke her arm.
Oh.
Yeah, very typical childhood type fracture.
Yeah.
She breaks her arm. Distal humerus, which is on her right arm. Distal means down. So it's right next to the elbow. So the humerus is the bone in the top. So she broke it about 2.5 inches right above the elbow. So it was a compound fracture, which means the whole bone snapped in half. So we had to go have surgery and have the bone put back together, and they put screws and pins in and blah, blah, blah. A little traumatic, but we're over it, and kids heal quick, and off we go. 4 years later, within about a month of that fall, she was diagnosed with terminal bone cancer in that same arm at that same location, not 1 centimeter away from where the break was.
My word.
Whoa.
And that was when my world sort of fell apart. understandably so. I mean, they're giving you a terminal diagnosis, less than 10% chance of survival.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, oh my gosh, like this should not be happening to anyone's child, much less my child. And that is a hard no.
Yeah.
Not going to lose my kid on my watch.
Yeah.
So I started to think and figure out, and I'm a thinker. I'm a funny person, but I'm a thinker. And so I start thinking, why did this bone not heal? She broke the arm. Why did it not heal? And that was really the point where I became very passionate about helping mothers and children change their diet and change the way that they not only they live their lives, but the way they grow their babies. Because I'm menopausal now. Like my oldest daughter, she lived, by the way. That's a whole nother story.
That's awesome.
Like that's an extra, but I'm very thankful about that. But they said she'd never have children. She would never drive a car. She would never live, past 15, whatever. She's 38. She has 4 kids and a thriving online business. Like diagnosis doesn't mean anything. Don't ever believe what they tell you. Ever.
Amen.
Ever. Don't ever put that label on you. And I'm going to soapbox for a second here. Is that all right?
Bring it. Let's do it.
Okay. So this is what pisses me off. So you go to the doctor and they say, oh, well, you only have X number of days to live, or, oh, you have this diagnosis, or, oh, you have PCOS or whatever. And then what we do, because we don't know what to do with that information, then we start telling everybody.
Yeah.
And then it becomes our identity. And then we walk around with a card hanging over our back that says, oh, I have terminal cancer. I have terminal cancer. I only have 2 years to live. I only have 1 year to live. At the point when she was diagnosed, my husband and I were driving away from that doctor's office, both of us in complete shock. And I think one of the best decisions I made, there were many that I have to say were good ones. This was the best one. Yeah. I looked at him and I said, we will never speak of this again.
Yeah.
We will never speak of this again, ever.
Amazing.
And we never did. We didn't tell our family. We didn't tell our friends, and we didn't tell her.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
And
you didn't even tell her.
No, she did not know that they gave her a terminal diagnosis with less than 10% chance of survival.
Amazing.
I said, we will not speak of it because I did not want the words to have that kind of power and energy over her life.
And they do.
Hard no.
Those words have such power and energy. I always say where thoughts go, energy flows. And so what you believe, it manifests, right?
Totally.
And
how many clients do we have that that's their introduction to themselves is I'm so-and-so, here's my diagnosis.
Yeah.
Here's how I identify myself to the world.
Right.
And how do you shake something when it's so deeply embedded in your core?
Totally. Absolutely.
I think it's a hard thing because it becomes, sometimes it's our identity, but you just have to make the choice that you're not going to say that. So like because we're supposed to be talking, I'm sorry, a soapbox, but we're supposed to be talking about like pregnancy. If you are someone who has not been able to get pregnant, watch what you say. Yeah. Because your body hears it.
Right.
And so when you keep saying, I can't get pregnant, or I'm pregnant, but I've had 5 other miscarriages. Yeah. Stop. Let's give the body a chance to do what it needs to do by harnessing the power of a good thought and good energy and positive words. Yeah. And just banning those negative words. Don't tell people. Right. Just keep it to yourself and then let's grow a baby. Let's grow a good, healthy baby. So that's why my daughter got cancer, was because I basically ate crap and she didn't have the resources that she needed in her body to heal that fracture. Yeah. And so as the fracture was starting to heal, it just couldn't heal. Right. It didn't heal properly. And so that's what happened. And I don't beat myself up for that. Like, I'm very open and transparent about that. My kids know. Mom's like, my daughter's like, well, Mom, oh, well, it just is my normal. I have a weird arm. That's just the way it is. I go, yeah, you do. Yeah.
It is what it is.
Just are normal.
I did not know this story, by the way. So
you didn't?
This is the first time hearing it. So
I knew it.
I had no idea. It took me by complete surprise. So
this is kind of a tangent also, but I'm curious about how you avoided falling into that trap of self-blame.
That's a really good question. And I think no one really wants, I don't think anybody really wants to ask that question because I think they're afraid of the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you for asking. So once I realized that, there was a couple of weeks where it was hard. It was just really hard when you see your child bawled and crying and saying, I don't want to go back to the doctor. She used to say, I don't want to go to sleep the night before chemo because she said, I don't want to have to wake up.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you stories that we'd all just be bawling, and it's just horrible.
Yeah.
But I just had, where I finally got was that I never did it. It was never intentional.
Right.
And I couldn't blame anyone else. Like I couldn't blame my parents. I could say, well, they taught me how to eat macaroni and cheese. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm the one that chose to put it in my pie hole.
Right.
Right. I'm the one that chose to put it in my mouth. So I can't blame anyone else. I just said, well, it is what it is. And all I can do is make a change moving forward.
Right.
And so that was where I just decided, but I guess, again, that's the power of the words.
Right.
I just decided I wasn't going to let that own me because I knew it would dictate and run the rest of my life. And I wasn't going to be a better person. I was only going to be a worse person by believing that I had almost killed my child.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, it is what it is. And off we go. Let's fix it now.
And when you know better, you do better. I tell my followers that all the time.
Exactly.
Like there's no ways you could have known.
No.
So
I didn't know, but that's why I'm so passionate about talking about like what you eat before pregnancy, because I can't change the next generation.
Yeah.
This womb is long closed up, baby. This is menopause central over here. So I can't have any more kids, but if I could go back, I would have probably had 10 because I would have wanted a do-over.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Like I would have wanted to do a do-over. Not that I wanted to ditch my first 3 kids, but I want to like make more babies so that I could go, hey, I'm going to reverse this trend. I want to like feed my body and have really strong babies. And so that was really what I've spent a lot of time is working with mamas and babies because I love pregnancy, fertility, because it's an opportunity for you to create a baby that's healthier than you.
And I love that.
All right. So that brings us to what we're talking about today, which is you're pregnant and you may be one of those women who was living off of Fritos and mac and cheese and McDonald's. And now you're pregnant and you're going, oh crap, what have I done?
Oh, crap. Mm-hmm.
So first piece of advice, let go, right? It's in the past. What's done is done.
It's done. It's done. That's right. I got a panicked phone call from someone one time, someone very close to me, and sent me a text message early in the morning, like 8:00 in the morning. And she said, 911, call me now.
Ooh.
I was like, oh my gosh, what, like who ran over who? Something really bad happened. And I called her and she said, oh my gosh, I just took a pregnancy test. Oh my gosh. And I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. And oh my gosh. And I was out drinking the last 2 weekends. And oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I said, nothing except don't drink anymore.
Right. Like you're done.
Like that's all. There's nothing to do. There's just don't do that anymore. And then just start doing the right things and just start. You just working what you're working with. It's like having a piece of clay in your hand. You can't make it be something. You have to shape it into something.
Exactly.
And so when we're pregnant, all we have to do is shape that little baby clay into what we want it to be. And that's largely by what you think and what you eat and your lifestyle.
Exactly.
It's really those 3 things.
So let's say they've hit their first trimester and they're nauseous. And this is the advice that I give to people. And it's probably wrong. And you're probably going to be like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? But when my clients are like, I'm trying to get my green smoothie down, I'm trying to get my bone broth down, but I just can't, it tastes so gross. I tell them, don't sweat it because I don't want them to hate it. Because, like during that first trimester, there's certain foods you eat and then you can never eat them again.
Right.
And I don't want green smoothies and I don't want bone broth and I don't want all of these healthy foods to have this negative association with like first trimester, like nausea. So what would you tell women in this spot where they're like, I can't keep the good stuff down?
I agree. I totally agree with you. I say, just don't eat the crappy stuff. Like find whatever you can tolerate and eat that thing.
Right.
So if you want pickles, I'm good. Just make sure they're fermented pickles, not Bubby's pickles in a glass jar.
Yeah.
Like real, true, living, growing, like if you left the lid on and left them out, the lid would explode kind of pickles.
Yeah.
So like find a thing that you love and then eat that. If you can't stand eggs, there's a reason that your body sends that message to you. It's because either you can't break it down or you don't have the right kind of acid, or there's something not right about it. So just listen and have a lot of grace for yourself and for the signals that your body is giving you. Sometimes we make it all wrong.
Right.
You know, we feel bad because we can't eat green smoothies or we can't, you know, do bone broth or whatever. It's okay.
Yeah.
Just listen to your body and go, okay, well, what do I want? If it says like bread or crackers or a donut, probably don't listen to that either. But find the healthy food that you can tolerate. But I agree with you. If you eat too much of that stuff and you force yourself, then you just hate it forever, especially if you puke.
Right.
That makes it worse. Yeah.
Do you think there's anything to the cravings though? If someone says, man, I am just craving pizza so bad, is there a reason for that? Or is that just their addiction kind of flaring up?
I think for some women, it's an addiction. It could be like a yeast issue, you know, where we're wanting that carby, sugary kind of stuff. I think there's part of that. But the other part is I think that the body starts early on giving you signals about the nutrients that it needs. For instance, like women that crave chocolate during their menstrual cycle, you know, they'll say, oh my gosh, like, or at ovulation or when they first start, chocolate's actually surprisingly pretty high in iron. So no wonder, like, and then if your digestive system's all jacked up, you're not going to crave a steak, although some people do. But you put the chocolate with the sugar and the brain is like, oh yeah, baby, bring that on. Let's do it. So, you know, there's always a message, you know, your cravings are always going to give you a message. The trick is just figuring out what the message is.
Right. On top of that message on top of the standard American diet brainwashing, right? Because we are all addicts to food. And so trying to filter that signal through the addiction and being like, okay, I might be craving carbs. Maybe it's fruit carbs. Maybe it's like quinoa carbs, or maybe it's veggie carbs and not like just the bread and crackers. Let's take this into, are there supplements that women should be taking in their first trimester? Are there things that they can do to help with the nausea? What can they take?
Well, I am a little picky when it comes to supplements. And I think you guys are too, I know. And the reason that I'm super picky about that is because I am really against the recommendations that the, you know, conventional medicine is providing, i.e., it's okay. They just recommend that you go take a prenatal vitamin that you could buy at like GNC or the grocery store, or maybe even Walgreens. Like, let's just find, maybe it's 99 cents in the discount thing. Let's just do that. How about we just try that one on? Like, that's not going to feed a toad. That's not going to help anyone. And then they'll always tell you, oh, make sure you're getting folic acid. Okay. So
let's talk about that.
If we just take folic acid and say, well, first of all, how many people do you know? You too. How many people do you know that have had a baby born with a birth defect as a result of folic acid deficiency?
Satori.
Okay.
My daughter.
So you know one person of the thousands of people that I have interacted with, doctors and patients, like tens of thousands. You're the fifth one. So by and large, we don't see it. But the great thing is that in your diet, folic acid is super abundant. And so all you have to do is eat the foods that are high in folic acid. So I have this little chart that I give to all of my pregnant mommies, and it has a list of folate is what we're looking for, of all the foods that are in folate. And here they are. Leafy greens.
Green smoothies.
Green smoothies. How about avocados? Really high in folate. So is asparagus. So is broccoli and Brussels sprouts. Beets, okra, cauliflower, red bell peppers, papayas, and oranges. And those are all high in folate. So if you just have those things in your diet, done. Check that one off the list. Awesome. But my second thing is why is folic acid any more important than vitamin A? Or than other fatty acids or vitamin C or magnesium? I think we just isolate this one vitamin and then we forget about all the rest of them, but it's all about doing all of them. So supplement wise, cod liver oil is an absolute, every pregnant woman needs to be on cod liver oil.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for bringing that up, because one of the complaints or fears I hear from pregnant women all the time is, but what if I get too much vitamin A? Isn't that toxic? Won't that hurt the baby?
Yeah, good. I'm so glad you brought that up. So when they did the studies on vitamin A that now Dr. Google proudly espouses for everyone who looks, when they did the studies on vitamin A, what they did was they were using a synthetic vitamin A.
Right.
So think of a synthetic as like, if you went to if you had a 3D printer that could print a clone of you, and one is fake and one is real. One is made of paper, or like a wax museum is a better example, right? You don't know, is this the real Elvis or is this the wax museum Elvis? And they look identical. Difference is that if I shake Elvis, the real Elvis, if I shake his hand is going to grip my hand, and it's going to be a real human to human touch. I know the difference. When I go to shake the fake hand, nothing, no response.
The arm breaks off.
Synthetic nutrients are like the fake. They are the fake in the body. They look like vitamin B or vitamin A or whatever. So when they did these studies in the pharmaceutical and the research arm of what they do when they set these studies up, they don't typically use food. They're going to use the synthetics, because the belief is that a chemical acts in the body the same way as a food does. And it's simply not true. So when they did the research, the study on this, they had all these pregnant women in the study, and they had 3 different groups. One group was getting a placebo, which means basically, or nothing. They were getting nothing. Second group was getting moderate amounts of vitamin A, and the third group was getting high amounts of vitamin A. They had to stop the study prematurely because the women that were getting the really high doses of vitamin A, now remember, this is a synthetic. So it's a fake in the body. It's a fake. It's like eating wax. Like eating the wax statue. Like, it's not good. But they had to stop it because the women were actually having babies with birth defects as a result of the vitamin A high dose they were giving.
Wow.
So the vitamin, it's not vitamin A that's the problem. It's the source. Are you going to take it as a synthetic waxy? And I'm not saying the synthetics are wax, but in my analogy. Or do we want to get vitamin A in a food form? And in the food form, we don't have to worry about the toxicity.
Right.
So vitamin A is never a problem if you're getting it in like cod liver oil or carrots, which is beta carotene, a vitamin A precursor. There's never a concern. If you were taking 32 cod liver oil a day, maybe.
Right.
But no one's going to do that. Right. So always, if it's from food, we're golden. So thanks for asking that. I would have forgotten about that.
And on that note, if you're a woman taking a prenatal from Walmart or wherever, go look at that label and see what is next to the vitamin A. It probably says something like retinol palmitate. Right? Yep. And that's the synthetic kind.
A key word to look for on those labels when you're like looking at a prenatal to know if it's a synthetic is, to your point, if it's a big long word, that's a synthetic, a chemical word, but you can't pronounce it. Or you often will see the word as. Anytime you see the word as, or if you see parentheses, and then you have a long word that doesn't sound like beet or carrot or
berries,
okra, or it doesn't say those words, then you should ditch it. So prenatally, I think there's a lot of things that we can do, but we just want to make sure that supplementally that we're rounding out the diet with supplements. I don't think people need to take a whole bunch of supplements during pregnancy, but I think diet is first, and then supplements come in to plug in the hole. So if you're nauseous and you're not feeling well, then we may need to do some more supplemental work, at least initially, if you can't get the food down.
Can we talk about organ meats right now? Because I have a lot of clients that take something. It's called Organ Complex, and it has heart, liver, and kidney in it. And they're all worried about taking this throughout their pregnancy. And we had someone else on our podcast. Her name was Autumn Smith, who owns this company called Paleo Valley, which sells the Organ Complex. And she mentioned the exact same study that you were talking about, where it was high doses of synthetic vitamin A. And she said, but if you want to be safe, just take it during your second and third trimester. What are your thoughts about taking organ throughout pregnancy, first trimester, second, third?
I would agree with the supplement wise. Like I always like to I just like to be really careful in the first trimester and just use food.
Okay.
That's just sort of my rule and for two reasons. One, I think the body does better because adjusting to that pregnancy is difficult.
Yeah.
Women are nauseous and they're not sleeping and they're and they're all jittery and excited and they don't feel good and they're fatigued and they got kids and they're tired. And so I just like to be really gentle and kind during that first trimester and focus on food instead.
Yeah.
But one of the foods that I like to have women eat though during the first trimester is a little bit of liver pate a few times a week.
Yeah.
Rather than taking it as like a desiccated or a dried type supplement, but to get it in a food form, because the liver pate, and I have a great recipe. I don't know if you guys have it or not.
We
if
do.
You don't,
We have the recipe. We'll make sure we put that up with the show notes.
And it's just, if you don't I hate liver pate. Like it makes me have gag in my throat. It's gaggy.
You're selling this really well, by the way. Good job. You're selling this really well, by the way.
So I don't like liver pate. It's nasty. And I had a friend who made me promise that I would try this recipe, and only because I love her did I agree to do it. So I'm such a chicken. So I make the recipe, and then I said to my husband, Rick, I said, okay, you try it first. And it looks like dog vomit when you're cooking it. It's got mushrooms and liver and onions and the smell and
There's pregnant women right now already gagging.
I know. I said, wait. So he said, I'll taste it. But I said, you don't count though, because you like liver and onions. You are nasty. He said, well, I'll taste it. So he tastes it. I said, I'm watching him is he going to start gagging and what's going to happen? He goes, it's good. I said, what's it taste like? He said, liver. I was like, oh, you're killing me over here. Come on. So like a big chicken, I just take the end of the spoon and I dip it. I mean, you couldn't hardly see it on the end of the spoon. And I take a little taste and I thought, okay, I didn't die. It wasn't horrible. I take a little bit more. We ended up eating the whole bowl of the liver pate. That's all we ate for dinner.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I got enough of liver for a year, probably that.
All right. So I've got to confess, I've been sitting on this recipe for probably a year now.
You're not going to sit on it anymore.
I've heard this story before, and I'm always like, okay, I can do this.
It's really good. I promise you, I've never, ever, ever met anyone that says, I don't like it. But I will say the recipe says chicken liver or duck liver, do not do duck liver.
Okay.
It's too greasy.
I don't even know where you'd find that. So that's not a problem.
Yeah, organic chicken livers are everywhere. You can get them. You can get them anywhere.
Yeah.
So beef liver though. Not really beef liver. It has to be chicken.
So 2 servings liver. Of this liver pate a week. How big is a serving? I know I'm going to get so many questions. How much would you say is a serving?
So I like to have a couple ounces at minimum, which isn't very much. That's like 1/8 of a cup.
Right.
It's very little.
Yeah.
So you don't need much, but you're going to have a hard time staying away from it because it's that good. And it's full of fat. It's got butter in it. It has creme fraiche in it. It's got shiitake mushrooms, some dried vermouth. Oh my gosh, so good.
Oh, that's awesome. Right. That's why I've never made it, because I don't have a bunch of those ingredients.
Just go. It's worth the trip. Just make a day trip out of it and get there. You'll really love them. And I will say this too. I sound like a commercial for this, but it's so good for pregnant mamas. So that's why. But it freezes well. So when you make the batch, I use the little white ramekins, little white ones, and I just fill those up. And that's for me, that's a serving. And I just cover the surface with saran wrap.
Perfect.
So that it doesn't get any kind of moisture burn.
Yeah.
And then I cover the whole thing with some foil and I stick it in the freezer. And then I just take them out and thaw them as I want to eat them.
That's awesome.
So it's a power food for pregnancy. So you don't need much. I would say I would say not more than 1/4 cup.
Okay. And women that are feeling nauseous on their prenatal, would you say they can come off their prenatal for the first trimester until the nausea is done and then go back on it for the second and third?
Well, if they're taking a synthetic, I would say just throw it away.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
You know, find one that's made from food, because you probably won't feel nauseous. And if you take supplements and they do make you feel nauseous, then just think about, like, you know, you guys will help your clients that are pregnant. Think about like what those nutrients are that you need. So I'll tell you, I make sure that they have enough folate. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure we get in enough B12, and that's where we're going to get that from, like the liver and eggs and cheese and salmon and just basically animal products. And then lots of B6. So again, meat and eggs and beans and salmon, and then choline, meat and eggs and beans and salmon, and then betaine, which is from beets, and then just like a really good healthy diet. I'm just not always a big fan of supplementing.
Yeah.
Especially during the first trimester, like just eat the foods that you know. And if you like beets, then just eat a crap ton of them during the first trimester, because obviously that's what your body wants.
You're going to die.
You're craving them.
Yeah, you're going to die. But when we were in the military, I was pregnant with Satori, and part of the program of being pregnant in the military is getting these like weekly updates, and like did you know, from the hospital, the military hospital, and one of the quizzes was, when you're pregnant, it matters what you eat. And the answer was like, it doesn't matter what you eat, just get in whatever you want, because you're going to be nauseous. And I remember reading that, and I didn't know everything that I knew today. And I was like, why are they teaching women this? Like, this is blasphemous. It absolutely matters, because they were more worried about people being nauseous than they were about the nutrition. And there is this ridiculous notion in the medical field that I think is changing as doctors are waking up, but they're like, nutrition doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
But the ironic thing is that same hospital had what was like a 50% C-section rate for their births.
It was really high. It was like, I think between 33 to 40%
it was
C-section.
Insanely high, and primarily because there was so much diabetes going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep,
so,
because they're eating so much crappy food all the time.
So how can they say that food doesn't matter when they're literally seeing the effects of bad food choices?
Right?
Tons of cognitive dissonance. It was actually, we were living in Texas, which is one of the most unhealthiest states in America, unfortunately.
But then it was also military families are also not
super healthy,
the most conscious of their health choices. So
anyways, so I just remember seeing that and being like, no, it absolutely matters what you're eating. So, okay. So with first trimester, what would you say about supplementing with like magnesium for women? Or I find that when women supplement with like some kind of really good like magnesium glycinate, they do really well. What are your opinions on that?
I think that if you find something, as long as it's a good quality, again, we don't want the synthetic stuff.
Yeah.
We want a good quality. If you find something that you do well with or feel well with, that's pretty much an indicator that there was a deficiency, and your body goes, oh, finally, water.
Yeah.
Finally, I'm getting what I need that I've been trying to tell you, and you're not listening.
Yep.
And now you're listening. Yep. So if there's that thing that you just eat, it's like the cravings are kind of the same thing. Obvious you have to cut out, get rid of the sugar, stay off the grains because they're so inflammatory. If you lived in Italy, grain consumption would be different, but it's the grains in the US that are the problem.
Totally.
And then, obviously like microbiome support, you cannot go wrong with that, because that's baby's first inoculation is that trip down the tube.
Right.
And we have to make sure that the gut bacteria is healthy, and you can't do like detoxification when you're pregnant. So we just want to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're thinking about, how am I feeding those microbes? Because I want to give my baby the best chance moving down the vagina. I call it vagina slime. Like, we got to get it everywhere. It needs to go in the nose and the eyes and the mouth and in everywhere. And we want that as healthy as we can. So you got 9 months to kind of work on that and build it up. So I think if we're going to do anything, I would nutrition wise, or even supplement wise, I tend to kind of slant that direction.
Okay.
So our audience is aware of like the SIBO protocol or the gut flora rebalancing protocol. Would either of those be appropriate during the first trimester if we know that there's some severe imbalances going on?
Yeah, I wouldn't do either one of those. So because what you're doing with the the GI flora, like those particular supplements, they would be contraindicated during pregnancy. The better thing to do would be, in my opinion, would be to do like making sure that you're, supporting the microbiome with a good quality fermented probiotic. One of my favorite probiotics for pregnancy is Dr. Ohhira's. And it's Ohhira, I think, Dr. Ohhira's. And they have a whole bunch of different kinds, but you want to get the original. And it's a fermented probiotic.
Interesting.
And I found that pregnant women really, really love this one. Like it doesn't cause any upset, and they tend to just instinctively really like it.
Really
so
great.
you can still do like whole food fiber, get fiber in the diet, and high fiber foods, because all of those they're basically, that's the food for the gut bacteria. Yeah. So if there's SIBO present, you have to be a little more careful with that, because you can't give them everything, but as much as you can, you want to try and get foods in that are going to feed the microbiome, and conveniently they feed the body too.
What about like dairy yogurts that are from like raw milk, that kind of stuff? Are you like, yes, absolutely.
Love it.
Perfect.
Yes. But raw milk would be better. We could do raw milk. We want to do that.
And
raw
full
cheese
fat.
in some parts of the country, you can't get raw milk. You have to do the cow share, or they've just made it illegal. But you can get raw cheese in all 50 states.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
so
awesome.
Just get raw cheese and focus on that. Some people women are sensitive to dairy. They might do fine with cheese because it's a different type of protein.
That's right.
Sometimes they'll do okay with raw cheese where they didn't do okay with any kind of raw milk. So I live in Las Vegas, and in Las Vegas, they have a place where we can actually get some raw milk, and there's a guy there that gets it, and then he makes kefir out of it, or kefir as it's pronounced.
As the Russians say, kefir.
It's so good. It's so good. So if you could get that, that's great. Really
Awesome.
good.
I remember
pregnancy food.
I remember when we were living in Texas and I was pregnant with Satori, I probably drank like a gallon of raw milk every week. And if I had 2 gallons, I would have had it, because I just wanted the fat. I wanted all of that fat in there. And I was like, give me all the yogurt, give me all the dairy. And even she was just like, are you sure that's healthy for you? I'm like, I don't care. My body just wants fat right now. I want all
Back
of
off, I'm starving.
Exactly. Okay. Go ahead.
I want to add one more fat in. So another really good healthy fat for mamas is eggs and egg yolks. So I always recommend at least 1 egg a day, the whole egg, white and yolk. And then you can have as many more yolks as you want.
Awesome. That's a really great tip.
Yeah, boil those bad boys up, hard boil them, throw the white away, and just eat the yolk.
I'm curious, why toss the white after the first egg?
You could do 1 or 2 eggs. The reason that I don't like them eating all of that egg protein is if there's any kind of hyperpermeability in the gut, they're going to end up with an allergy to it.
Right.
Because we're going to get protein leaking through, and then the immune system's going to get involved. So, you just don't know what's going on downstairs when you were pregnant. Everything shifts. And so I'm just really careful. I'm not against eggs, but I just am careful with that. But you won't be allergic to the yolk. People who have allergies to eggs, or the yolk isn't where the allergic response comes from. The yolk is full of choline and B vitamins. It's one of the best. And choline is a needed nutrient for the gallbladder, the liver, for fat digestion in the gut. It feeds the gut bacteria. It's it's a superfood for pregnancy, in my opinion.
It's really interesting that you say that, because I get asked all the time, like, I ate really well, or I'm putting in quotation marks, and my baby was born with allergies, severe digestive dysfunction, blah, 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 blah. And I always, and this has happened twice where I've had women say the exact same story, and they're like, this is my least healthiest child. And then I asked them, what did you eat a lot when you were pregnant with them? And in both situations, they said, I craved a ton of peanut butter. And I was like, oh, well, there it is. Like leaky inflammation, aflatoxins, like you have to be really careful. And I'm really glad that you brought up the egg white thing, because I didn't even think egg whites, but like if you are going to town on certain nuts, right? Peanuts being the most inflammatory. What other foods should people be mindful of that could create leaky gut? I mean, it's so different for each individual, right? Because we each have our own sensitivities and our own gut biome that can handle certain things. But like you said, wheat is one of my big ones. Not good dairy, peanuts. You added the egg whites. What else would you put on that list? Corn?
Well, corn would be on the list.
Sugar.
Anything that made you feel, before you got pregnant, anything that made you feel bloated or you just would eat it and you go, something not right about that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to know whether it's an allergy or not an allergy. Like, that part doesn't matter. You just listen to the clues that your body's giving you.
Yeah.
And if you do have foods that you aren't sure about, then I recommend that you do them in a 4 or 5 day rotation. So let's say you're not sure about eggs. Like, I don't know, eggs might be bothering me. Okay, great. Have one egg and then pay attention to how you feel for the next 4 days. And then on the 5th day, eat another egg again.
Yeah.
And then chart down and write down how you feel for the next 4 days.
Yeah.
The reason that you give that space is because it takes about 4 days for the immune response to settle down. If there's an immune, quote, I'll say allergic reaction, but it could just be a sensitivity. But the immune system is like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't think I like that.
Yeah.
It takes 4 days for that to calm down and get back to a kind of a baseline.
Yeah.
So, and you can have delayed reactions. You could eat an egg on a Monday and you won't get bloated until Wednesday.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, well, I don't know. I ate egg on Monday. It can't be egg, but you can have within 4 days. So if you think you might be sensitive, then just space those foods out. You can still have them, but you may just need to let your immune system kind of calm down. It kind of gets mad like a mad dog.
Yeah.
It's barking and growling and everything. It just needs 4 days to settle itself out, and then you can start again.
Totally.
And that's not just specific to pregnant women, right? That's everybody.
That would be everyone.
So,
Same thing. And it does have to do with the whole leaky gut conversation. You know, you just get those little junctions between the cells just open up and stuff starts to leak through. It's like, you know, it just leaks. And when it leaks through, it engages those foods, proteins engage with the bloodstream, the immune cells in the bloodstream. And the bloodstream's like, what the heck are you doing in here? You're not supposed to be here. And just sends out an APB to everywhere in the whole body and goes, hey, bad guy got in through the gate, the moat, and past the guards. What happened? Go get him. And if you see him, go kill him. So every time you eat that same food that the immune system thinks got past the guard and the gate and the moat, then it's going to go start shooting.
Yeah. Okay. One last thing I want to add for women in their first trimester, and actually second, third, and when you're lactating and you have your baby, superior minerals. I have gotten so much amazing feedback from pregnant women taking, or anyone taking the superior minerals. But the feedback I get from the most are pregnant women, where they're like, I'm not waking up in the middle of the night to pee several times. I am sleeping really well. I am less nauseous. I have more energy. And then I just got a message, actually, the last time I mentioned the superior, I got a message saying my milk was drying up and I started taking superior, and within 24 hours, it came gushing back. And so I want to give people that visual of, you know, when you are pregnant, first, your body is a brick house, right? Or hopefully it's a brick house. Maybe you've been repairing it with sticks and straw, and so therefore it's a little bit compromised. But when you're pregnant, you are growing your own tiny brick house, and it has to get the bricks from your house, right? So as you are literally leaching your minerals and your vitamins and your amino acids and your fatty acids to this tiny human being, the cutest little parasite on the face of the planet, you know, you're being leached, right? Like, you are being sucked dry. So put those minerals back in, eat the healthy food. It really does matter. Put your bricks back in, because your bricks are being taken up from you to give to this tiny human. And so make sure that you're getting your superior minerals, you're getting your pate, you're getting all of your leafy greens, your avocados, your beets, and everything that Ronda's been talking about, because you have to keep restoring from what baby is taking. Because when baby comes out of your body, let's say you haven't been restoring, guess what? Everything is going to come crumbling down. And I bet you hear that a lot. I hear it all the time where people are like, I just had my second baby and I feel like death. Or as soon as I had my baby, I was full blown Hashimoto's. Or as soon as this, I got this. And I want people to realize that's the same pattern, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, with postpartum depression. I had my baby and I got hit hard with postpartum depression. It's like, because there was an imbalance, right?
Yes,
like your brain isn't getting the right minerals anymore, the right like neurotransmitters. Like it's because you are depleted. And so it's manifesting as postpartum depression, or it's manifesting as Hashimoto's, or it's manifesting as some other autoimmune disease. But this is all the same mechanism of being leached dry throughout pregnancy. Am I correct?
I totally agree with you. And I think there's two things I want to say. One is that with the, leaching, or that pulling out of all of the minerals, et cetera, the one thing that I see often, and it's common, and that is anemia with pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what happens. Sometimes we think, well, I'm eating all this food, this like red meat, and I don't know why I'm anemic. Here's what happens. The baby cannot absorb iron for the first 6 months of life. So baby has to have 6 months worth of iron stored up. And guess who has to be the donor?
You, mom. Mm-hmm.
So not only is mama having to have more red blood cells, more iron to nourish, feed, support this little parasitic leech that's growing in her belly. But so she's a higher demand just to take care of the baby. But then on top of that, the baby is literally sucking the iron out of her body. So women sometimes can't get on top of that anemia. And that's why I think farrow food is from Standard Process is absolutely hands down my all-time most favorite prenatal supplement. I say, if you can't get anything else in all 3 trimesters and post-pregnancy, because we lose blood during the delivery, all 4 trimesters, if you think of it that way, farrow food should be in. And if there's the further you get through into the pregnancy, the higher the dose. So I love that one. And then as you talk about postpartum, the other one that I really love is chase tree. So I only recommend it. Sorry for the siren.
You're fine.
I only recommend it during the first trimester if needed. And then you don't need it during the second and third trimesters, but it can be a game changer to help really bring equilibrium back to those hormones, especially with postpartum depression, post-delivery. So, or on the herb side, that's one of my all-time favorite herbs.
Awesome. So farrow food and chase tree. And I'm making some notes here, and let's do a link if people want to buy these products, like the Superior and the farrow food, Gutsy.ch /pregnant.
Pregnant? Yeah,
with
sounds
no
good.
question mark.
We can do that.
Okay, so Gutsy.ch /pregnant.
All right. All right. Can we talk about digestion for a minute? Because you brought up the iron thing, and we have so many women who they're like, I never get heartburn except for when I'm pregnant. What's going on there, and what kind of recommendations do you have when women develop indigestion during pregnancy specifically?
So there's 2 things that are happening. One is during the early parts of pregnancy, all the energy is being moved down to the lower part of the body, and there's really not a lot happening upstairs. So digestion starts to have to limp along. It would be like, taking off one of your legs and moving it and going and doing something else with it and saying, okay, and now you're going to have to function up here with one leg. So the upper digestive system's a little bit crippled or handicapped during the first trimester. So doing things like even digestive bitters are okay. Or the MediHerb, I love using the Digest Phytosynergist for women who are, just need that overall digestive support. That's a great product. It's a liquid. It doesn't taste great, but it's fine if you dilute it. The other thing that is really important during that first trimester for that indigestion, bloating, nausea, like morning sickness, is I will give them gallbladder support, because it's usually a bile. It's a thickening or a congestion of the bile. So once you get that bile moving, the nausea often goes away. And one of the things that, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I use it all the time, and it's the phosphate liquid. I would not recommend it any other time unless you're working with a qualified person, because it will it's a very potent product, but it's fine during the early days of pregnancy, and it will stop not morning sickness 12 hours. Done. Even the worst cases.
Wow.
Like a charm. Every single time. I've never had it not work.
Oh my gosh.
So I always say, if you're having morning sickness and you are one of my patients and you don't tell me about it, then you just enjoy yourself. Because you don't have to have it. Like literally in 12 hours, we can make it go away.
Interesting.
Wow.
So it works really fast. And then, what was your other question? You said upper digestion. Oh, indigestion.
Yeah.
The second part of that is, as baby grows, you get that stomach gets that pressure because baby's getting bigger and it's pushing up on the stomach. So the normal acids that the stomach is supposed to have, they just come up because there's no room. Like they don't have anywhere to go. They're just going to come up. So I like using something with some kind of bentonite clay. Sometimes I'll do that if that reflux is really severe. I like using Gastrex and a little bit of choline and some bentonite clay on the later stages. That really does help with that indigestion, like in that third trimester.
Is there a brand of bentonite clay that you recommend?
No, I try and find one that's pretty good. It's hard to find because they're all irradiated now.
Right.
Like all the bentonite clays are irradiated to make sure there's no little micro bugs. But, the bugs are what help our gut bacteria. So I don't think that's it's like using antibacterial soap, which is a no. So I think you're going to be good with any kind of, bentonite clay.
Awesome. Okay. So I think we've nailed first trimester. What about second and third? What is really important? I mean, we've covered the basis, right? The food, the supplementation, all these things. Is there anything people should really be focusing in on during the second and third trimester that we haven't already discussed?
Well, I'm going to give you my list of like my pregnancy power foods. So here's my list. So cod liver oil, we already talked about that. So I recommend doing it in a gel cap rather than a liquid because otherwise it is gnarly if you have to drink it.
Yeah.
Raw cheese, about 5 to 6 ounces a day. I love that. Just make sure it's raw. Organic Valley is one of my favorites.
And you can get that raw, like everywhere.
Everywhere, right? So raw milk or cheese, but raw milk's not available everywhere. So cheese is great. 2 to 4 ounces of that fresh liver. Again, that's just like in that pate. So just a couple ounces of pate, a couple times a week. You don't want to do it every day.
Right.
And then we talked about eggs and then butter. Butter, again, is another superfood. If you can get raw butter, great. If not, then at least try and get organic butter. So raw butter, I like to say get 4 tablespoons of butter a day. That's a half a cube.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a lot of stinking butter. But guess what has a lot of butter in it?
What?
Liver pate.
Oh, there you go.
So good. Okay.
That's awesome.
2 to 4 servings of fresh fish a week. Try and get non-farmed fish. So, avoid unless you know that you can get fresh caught shrimp. I just was on a shrimping boat for the first time in my life and went shrimping. It was so fun. And the shrimp were
so good.
Indescribably good. They were so good. So different than what you would eat in the store. So, like tilapia is farmed, the cod is farmed, shrimp farmed. So avoid those, but really try and get the best, fresh caught fish if you can. Beef, pork, or lamb. So again, there's your red meat. And you may need to take some, I don't know what you guys recommend, but I might use like digestive bitters I talked about, or maybe some like Zypan or
Enzycor is one of my faves.
Or something, right? Just to kind of help break that meat down. Because again, digestion can be compromised a bit. And then coconut oil is another one. Just get good coconut oil. Do a couple tablespoons a day. Fermented foods, bone broth, veggies, and then salt. Celtic sea salt, I think, is so important. And even in addition to the minerals, just having salt on your food and the Celtic sea salt, you don't have to worry about it with hypertension or anything like that. In fact, it can help with eclampsia, the risk for eclampsia later in pregnancy.
There you go.
So often women that are salt deficient have a higher risk of eclampsia.
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
Quick question. I'm backtracking a little bit, but you mentioned the digestive phytosynergist. What about the digest forte? Is that okay during pregnancy?
No, that one's a no because it's got wormwood in it.
All right.
And wormwood's contraindicated during pregnancy. I wish there was a tablet. So they used to have the digest just as a tablet, and then they enhanced it and it added more bitter power to it, and they added wormwood. And that is what makes it contraindicated during pregnancy.
I feel like
so the liquid instead.
The liquid.
For those. Yeah.
I feel like pregnant women would hate that anyways, because I can't even get my non-pregnant people to take it and enjoy it. So that's probably
sometimes you have to just find the liquid that you think works well with it. Like, I don't know. I probably am really a bad person to ask because I will jump up and down and make ugly face and probably make some noise, maybe cuss. I don't know if it tastes really bad, but I just am so used to taking them now that I just go, oh, yeah, whatever.
Right.
Just dilute them. Just dilute it. And if you've ever thrown back a shot, do not take shots while you're pregnant. But you get one of the little medicine cups and just put the dose in the bottom, fill the little medicine cup up like you would fill up. It's less than a shot glass. And you just throw that bad boy back and chase it with some water. Kaboom.
There you
Done.
go. Chase it with some water and some Celtic sea salt. You're good to go.
That's it. And it's over. That program's
pregnancy
over.
margaritas.
I love that. So can we talk? I can't even think of it anymore. When women get tested positive for
Group B strep.
Yes. Is there anything that they can do about that? Because I get asked that all the time and I'm like, I'm sorry, you have to talk to your doctor or talk to a midwife. But is there anything that they can do about that? Because I just feel like it's really bad timing because we all have that, don't we? And I feel like it just moves around and then they just got tested at the wrong time. What can women do for that?
So group B strep is often, we see it in the last trimester, and it's a normal commensal part of our gut bacteria.
Right.
So pregnant women, now we're going to get real candid here. So pregnant women, when they poop, larger pregnant women, when you're big and fat, you can't reach. And so sometimes hygiene, we don't have bidets, generally speaking, in this country. So sometimes hygiene starts to become compromised during the day until you take your shower the next day. But what happens is that commensal bacteria, it's very, very normal. Like it's very normal. What happens is it can, because it's in the neighborhood, right? And so it can wick up and get into the vaginal canal. It mixes with the microbes. That's one thing that can happen. The second thing is because it's a commensal bacteria, the vaginal microbiome is a mirror of the intestinal microbiome. Okay, they're mirror of each other. So when you have that vaginal when you have dysbiosis in the small intestine, guess what? You're going to have dysbiosis in the vaginal canal. And that dysbiosis, when there's a loss of good beneficial, like the good guys in there, then it gives group B an opportunity to overgrow.
Right.
So what I like to do is we just basically need to change the pH of the vaginal canal. That's all. And so we're going to change the ecology of the vaginal canal. So I use like lactic acid yeast wafers. I have them crush them and mix them with a little bit of coconut oil and use that as a suppository. That helps. Coconut oil by itself will help. And then lots of fermented foods. And I even have women that will use a probiotic vaginally. And they'll just like either open the capsule and mix it in with a little bit of coconut oil, put it in the freezer so that it makes it hard. You can actually insert it. But that will change that. There is no clinical evidence to show that antibiotics with group B strep are beneficial, but they will scare you and say you have to do them. And I will tell you a story. When my daughter, my oldest daughter, the one that had cancer, she was pregnant with her second baby and she was in Denver and I was in California at the time. So she called and she goes, "Mom, I think I'm in labor." And I said, "Great, I'm on the next flight out." Well, I missed the birth by about 2 hours, but I get there. She had a home birth. Everything was great. So the midwife did a blood draw. They sent it in and they said, "Oh, she's got group B strep. So she has to go into the hospital." So the next morning, baby is like I don't know, 16 hours old. The next morning we go to the hospital and they said, well, we have to admit you and we have to admit the baby. And I said, oh, no. If you're going to go in, that's fine, but we're not going to admit the baby. So what do they say to my daughter, who is now the dominant hormone in a woman after she has a baby is the hormone that says, do not hurt my baby. I'm going to protect my baby at all costs. And it's a very strong protection instinct. So I'm there, I'm the mama and the grandma. And she said, Mom, what do I do? And I said, don't let them admit him. It'll be fine. And just wait this out. If you wait 3 days, it's going to be fine. They said, well, baby might have it. And if the baby has it, he could go blind. This is what they tell her. Well, A, that doesn't happen. It's like 1 in, I don't even know how many 100,000. B, he's not blind. He was born. He's good. They didn't have it in his eye. Like, he was fine. But all they had to do was tell her he could die or he could go blind. And what is her response?
Going in. Admit us.
Right now. Put me in. Sign me up. I'm in for this. And I just looked at her and I said, are you sure? Are you sure? Sure. That's what you want to do. Yep, I do. I want to do it. I said, okay. So she said, Mom, will you go with him and go get the IV started? I said, yeah. So I go with him. A bad EMT and a ambulance driver or a fireman that thought he could start an IV in a 6-pound baby.
Oh my gosh.
7 tries later, they finally get it here.
No.
So they put it in his head and they give him 3 days of high dose antibiotics. And I sat in that hospital with them for 3 days. And at the 3rd day, because they have to do the culture, culture it out. At the 3rd day, they said, nope, you're clear. It was fine and he's fine. And you don't have it and he doesn't have it. And I looked at her and I said, you need to know that his gut microbes now
are destroyed.
Are worse than if he'd been born C-section.
Unbelievable.
And he is now 12 years old and he's full on the autistic spectrum.
No.
And has been from when he was a baby. And so that's her, just like you asked me, like, how did you not feel bad about what you did? It's the stuff we don't know. And that's why, like, listening to these kinds of podcasts and educating yourself and not putting yourself in situations where you're going to get bad advice, go seek the right advice that feels right for you. Because she said, Mom, if I had to do it over again, I wish I could have done it differently. But I said, honey, you couldn't have done it differently. Because that was just your paradigm at that moment. And you just do what you have to do. And then now you just work with what you got to work with. And you just got to help him get through life.
Exactly.
And so so group B strep is really just not a thing. Yeah, there's a risk, but there's a risk of getting hit on head on in a car crash when you get in a car too.
Or getting loaded up with antibiotics for 3 days.
Thank you. So you just have to, every person has to make that determination. Where's that balance? What risk am I worth taking? But it's so important to go in and be educated about it. So group B strep, in my opinion, it is not worth a course of antibiotics for a baby or mom. Not worth it. Fix the vaginal microbiome, fix the gut microbiome, lots of fermented foods for a week or 10 days before you go into delivery, and you'll be fine.
So people need to understand their rights here, because let's say they get tested positive for group B. Like, when do they start testing? 2 months prior, 1 month prior? Do you know?
No, it's a month to 2 weeks prior. They'll start testing like before baby's born, right before.
So if they get tested positive at like the 4-week mark, 4 weeks prior to delivery, can they ask for more testing right before delivery and be like, can you test me for group B? And if I test negative, then I don't want the antibiotics.
You can always say no.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I thought you had to.
You can always say no. You just say no, thank you. But here's the problem. It's just like what happened with my daughter. When you say to me, and fear is often a tactic that's used. And I don't mean to say that it's all the time a bad thing, but sometimes fear is just used. It's just human. It's just what sometimes happens, sadly. But But from a medical perspective, there is a risk.
Right.
But remember that medicine sees the cases where it happens. And so they're going to come at it from a perspective that says, oh my gosh, we have to prevent this from happening to everyone. So better to use high dose antibiotics on everyone.
Right.
So we never see it happen.
Right.
But
And
always,
they don't
on the
have
other
to
side,
see.
we're looking and going, we need to remodel the body. How do we protect the body so that we don't have to do that?
Yeah.
And you'll be less likely to have any kind of a bacterial overgrowth when that gut microbiome is really healthy in the beginning, like even before you get pregnant.
Yep. Well,
That's the time.
Well, and having healthy gut biome also means less chance of thrush.
Totally.
And so
and postpartum depression, there's a link there.
Yeah.
Yep. Colicky babies.
Yep.
Babies that have allergies, like gut health, it all stems from there.
What's really interesting is with my first pregnancy, Tennyson, I ate a lot of sugar because I was a sugar addict. I was like a classic sugar addict. And he was super colicky and he got thrush and I got the thrush infection in my boob and all that. With Satori, none of that. Like not even a sign of like clogged ducts or thrush, not a thing with her. And it's because my nutrition was like so on par with her. And that's when I got over like my sugar addiction. And you can see with Tennyson, if he eats inflammatory foods, like his brain is on fire. But with Satori, she's feisty whenever she wants to be. It's not because of her environment. So I feel like we've nailed first, second, third, basically, because we covered a lot of stuff in the first. Is there any parting wisdom on fourth trimester and what mom should be doing, what she should be eating, what she should be taking?
So in traditional cultures, for thousands of years, in traditional cultures, after a woman, in fact, during the pregnancy and after the pregnancy, the woman didn't have to do anything. Yeah. And she just basically was treated like royalty. Like all of her meals were brought to her. She got the sacred food of the culture. And that might be like fish eggs or organ meats or, some kind of fat. Like she was treated very, very, very specially because the tribe knew that in order for their tribe to thrive and, be able to carry on, defend themselves, they had to have healthy offspring. So as much as possible, I say take advantage of everyone that wants to bring you food. If you have meals brought in, make sure you're very clear about what you're okay with, what you want in your house. Don't let them bring you lasagna from Costco. Right. Whatever, deep fried fish wings or whatever, you got some crazy thing. So make sure that your food is really, really good and make sure that you're resting. And if you got a parent or grandparent or someone that could come and help you, at minimum for the first 2 weeks, you really need to be down. Yeah. Because then we end up running risk of mastitis. Mastitis is most common when mothers overdo it. They just do too much. And that's your sign. Like, hey, whoa, time out. You need to slow the bus down. You're doing too much. You need to rest and rest and rest. Baby sleeps a lot. Mama needs to sleep a lot. Yeah. Not as much as baby, but sleep is so important.
I have a burning question. Should mothers eat the placenta?
I was just going to ask that. We're on the same wavelength. The placenta encapsulation. Like, what do you think of that?
So I love it.
Because
I don't know how your audience feels, but I am a big fan. And it makes so much sense to me because why we talk about eating organ meats.
Right.
The placenta is just another organ. And I don't believe if it wasn't something that was useful, then why does it come out? Right. It comes out because it's got all the hormones that mamas need for that postpartum period. So my second daughter is actually a certification specialist for, she certifies women to do placenta encapsulation and do it safely and correctly. And that's what she does. And so I've seen the placentas that come through that she'll pick up at the hospital, and some of them are gnarly. I mean, gnarly looking. You're thinking, and I look at them and I think that baby's going to have a problem.
Wow.
problems.
Interesting.
You can see the health of the baby in the placenta. And there are some that she says, I can't do this one.
Right.
It's just not even healthy.
Yeah, amazing.
And you aren't going to be healthy if you eat this organ.
Oh no.
But the
amazing.
postpartum depression is pretty much gone with placenta encapsulation, but you do need to make sure that you get that done by someone who has been certified.
Yeah.
I've seen and heard some horror stories about moms that are like, oh yeah, I'll just take it and dry it in my dehydrator. And there's a little bit more to it than that, but I'm a big fan of it. So if you can do the placenta encapsulation, I highly recommend it.
Awesome.
And there's some specialists that will actually make a tincture. So it takes 2 weeks though, but they'll put a tiny little bit of the placenta in a bottle with alcohol and then shake it every, couple, 3 times a day. And the placenta encapsulation specialist will do that. And then they strain out the placenta, and it's in alcohol, so it's fine even if it was in there. But they'll take it out, and that has a huge effect on mood, emotions, recovery, healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I don't know. I'm curious now. So how do you feel? Did I step on a landmine there? Or are you guys like placenta friendly?
I did placenta encapsulations with Tennyson, but I didn't with Satori because someone, and again, I wasn't educated. I just wasn't with Tennyson. Like, he was ginormous. He was such a big baby, and my milk supply, even through Graves' disease, was so robust. And I think it was from the placenta encapsulations. With Satori, my milk, I didn't get engorged with my milk, but and she's also very tiny, and she was born tiny. She's been tiny, and so I wonder if the placenta would have helped with that, but someone talked me out of it, and now I'm sad about that. But
and she was born in a military hospital.
She was born in a military hospital under tons of trauma. Exactly.
Yeah.
Antibiotics in her eyes. I was like horror stories about being bullied in the hospital and traumatized and all that jazz. Right. And so long story short, I now take organ. My kids take the Catalin, so they're eating their own organs, the Catalin chewable. And that's, when you know better, you do better. And so I can just do better by giving them the Catalin chewables. And when she's older, she'll take the organ complex, or she'll take the adult Catalin, and, we'll just go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an organ. And I think that there's so much benefit. I was so bummed when a very notable, I won't mention the name, but someone that's everybody knows the name. Like, there's not anybody in that alternative health or I want to take care of myself naturally world that doesn't know this name. And this person came out with an article that said placenta encapsulation is wrong and you should never do it. And it's really bad for you and it's dangerous. And
interesting.
I was so sad because I thought, you don't realize the impact that you have on people, especially when you put out information. I thought, well, who paid you to write that?
Right.
Right. Who bought you out?
Right.
Maybe not, but it just made me sad because it really is such a wonderful option for mamas to be able to take advantage of that. It's like God's gift to you.
Yeah.
After you have a baby, that little placenta is the gift that you have of the baby that you grew and the life that you get to live.
Right. And
it's that placenta, it's a gift.
And that placenta feeds the baby. And so if it's food, it's literally food. So you can feed yourself, all the leftover nutrients. I have one more question. I know we are, this is just we're running out of time. I'm so sorry. But there's one thing that just peeves me off. And it's when people message me, not the people that message me, but it's the messages where they're like, my doctor says I can't take this. And so things like turmeric and spirulina and all of these healthy foods. But then I've heard where doctors are like, you have a headache, go drink some diet soda, go drink diet Pepsi or something. And I'm just I'm like, oh my gosh. So I want women to research, but turmeric, I understand because it's a blood thinner. And so that's potentially one of the reasons why you don't want to do turmeric. What's the spirulina thing? Do you know why women can't take spirulina when they're pregnant?
It's a very nutrient dense food, and it also can cause a little bit of blood thinning.
Oh, okay.
So I think that the spirulina, I tend to be a little bit cautious with that. And here's my thinking, and I probably could be convinced otherwise. But I always think about, how do things come in nature? Like, how does it show up in nature? How do fish show up in nature? How does iodine show up in nature?
Yeah.
So iodine, we get it mostly, it's very, very concentrated, obviously, in sea vegetables like bladderwrack or kelp, but we aren't fish.
Mm-hmm.
So the iodine that we get comes from the rainwater, or it comes from the ocean water that's washing up on bladderwrack as a shore iodine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, okay, it's the same thing like spirulina. Okay, so it's an algae.
Mm-hmm.
How are we, what are we supposed to like go down and like suck that stuff out of the water?
Filter it out. Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying don't, but I just think, okay, maybe my ancestors at some point, they may have used it for food when there wasn't anything else to eat.
Yeah.
But their gut microbes probably had adapted to that food source,
Right.
because gut microbes will alter. That's why people that eat fat, you know, the Inuit, Alaskan people, they have a diet that's high in fat. If we ate that much fat, we would blow up, and we would, because we aren't, our bodies aren't suited for that. So I just think anything that's more than how it occurs in nature is too much for us.
Gotcha.
That's just how I think about it.
All righty. Well, thank you for all of these amazing pearls of wisdom. Like, I think a lot of people are going to just be blown away by all of these incredible tips and learn new things. I learned so many new things. So, what else do we?
That's it. We are over time, so we can't literally can't say anything else. But this was awesome. Thank you so much, Rhonda.
Thank you.
This was really helpful, and hopefully we'll be able to do it again sometime and talk about actually getting pregnant, because that's another big question we get a lot.
We definitely should talk about that, because that's a whole nother hour show for sure.
For real. Oh my gosh. There's going to be so many soapboxes with that episode.
Yeah, don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Right. Or me. We'll have like lining up our soapboxes next to each other. It's like your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, because there's just
That's exactly right.
so many systemic issues with women that are experiencing infertility right now. So thanks you guys for listening. Rhonda, thank you. Dr. Rhonda, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And until next time, guys, please like, review, share, subscribe, all of those wonderful things. You all are doing an amazing job. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
Love you. Bye.